I, nearly adult male, live with my parents and younger siblings. We were very close until recently. My first mom died when I was 6 days old. She developed eclampsia in the late stages of the pregnancy with me, and she never recovered from it. A few weeks later, my dad packed up and moved with me because he couldn't stay where they planned a life together. This left her family behind. She has parents, siblings, nieces and nephews, aunts, uncles and cousins who were always a very tight-knit family. My dad met my adoptive mom when I was 7 months old. Out of insecurity on my mom's part and a desire to forget the future he'd planned with my mom, contact between my biological maternal side was limited to once a year. My mom didn't want to share the role of mom. She knew my family would want to talk about my mom around me and would want me to know that she existed, but she didn't want to feel like she was less of an actual mom. And my dad has just never gotten over the pain of losing my mom, and he buries the past and her to cope. I know he struggles to look at me sometimes because I look just like my mom and her family. So he could never entirely escape, no matter how much he wanted to. I don't fully understand why they couldn't put me first in that decision, but they didn't. My childhood was mostly happy. It had some negatives, like wishing I knew my family better or that I'd known my mom. Also, I wasn't accepted by my adopted mom's family, so that was always fun. Then I had more contact with my family. It started with texting, calling and Zoom calls regularly, and then convincing my dad to let me go for a weekend here and there. He and my mom didn't like it, and the decision confused my siblings too. I've loved getting to know them, and they've loved getting to know me. Grandparents' rights weren't an option for them because of that one visit a year, so seeing me more is huge for them. My parents started to tell me how much they disliked all this extra contact. My dad said it's painful, and my mom told me she feels less important because I'm chasing a relationship that is tied to a mom I don't remember. A couple of weeks ago, they told me I should consider them and my mom's feelings. I asked them how they would feel if they were in my mom's shoes or her family's shoes. If they died while their child was just a baby and they were erased by their spouse and his new spouse, would they be okay with that? And would they be okay if my siblings or I died with a newborn and they never got to be a real part of their lives? They refused to answer. I told them I didn't want to speak until they gave me an answer because they were being totally unfair to me. My parents were angry about this, and my siblings asked me why I had to make this such a big deal. So I posed the question, if one of us died and we never got to see their only child, would they be okay with that? It helped them to understand that my parents don't like my no-talking thing, but all they want to talk about is this topic. And they also won't give me an answer. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. You have a right to see your birth mom's family and have a relationship with them. This is just cruel to you and your maternal family. Your younger siblings sound more mature than your dad or adopted mom. They can't answer because they would feel exactly as you do. However, they still want you to not have a relationship with your maternal family because it threatens the new family they created. I will say this sounds highly unhealthy. Your dad can keep shoving those things away, but at this point it's hurting you too. I mean, it can't be fun knowing that your dad has trouble sometimes even looking at you because you remind him of something painful that's obviously not your fault. It sounds like your dad would benefit significantly from some therapy to finally deal with these buried emotions. Still, I understand that it's doubtful you or anyone else will be able to convince him to give it a try. Oh, and your stepmom is afraid she's going to lose you. You are not the idiot at all, and at your age you shouldn't have to reassure adults, but here you are. I wonder if there's more to the story than they tell you. Grief does weird things to people, but it almost sounds like your dad was hiding from your mom's family. Maybe they didn't think he could care for a baby and pressured him to give you to them. Ashley, 26 female, and I, 28 male, have been together for over a year. Honestly, most of the relationship was good until we reached the year mark. I first started to notice messages from my friends and family going missing. Invites to hang out that we discussed never reached me. I thought I was going crazy at first because my own text conversation didn't make sense to me, until I caught her deleting a conversation I was busy having with my cousin. I flipped out because why the heck would she do that? We were having a conversation about a surprise birthday party for my 80-year-old grandmother. This was the first time I saw the other side of her, the yelling and screaming, asking why I was always planning things without her. No, I haven't planned anything without her, and she's always been invited and included in the planning. What made me angrier was that she was trying to make me the bad guy even after I asked her input multiple times at this party for my grandmother, and she was deleting the text. I apologized for making her feel that way and promised to include her more. My family and friends and I live a considerable distance from each other, I'm 16 hours away from my family, so everything has to be planned. I've also noticed whenever we had plans to hang out with my family or friends, she always had something come up at the last minute that she desperately needed my help with. Never something when we hung out with her friends or family. I did mention this, but she convinced me that it was just a coincidence. I never hear my phone ringing but always find missed calls on my phone, and my phone is conveniently on silent, something I don't do. She denied doing it. I actually thought I was going crazy a couple of times. The last straw was 4 days ago. My grandmother had a heart attack and died in hospital 2 days later. I didn't receive any text or call regarding this from anyone. She had blocked everyone from my family to friends on my phone. I initially thought my phone was quiet, but we're adults and life gets busy, so I didn't think much of it. That was until I ran into one of my old friends at the grocery store, and he gave me his condolences for my grandmother. I asked what he was talking about, and he told me about my grandmother. I took my phone out of my pocket and saw everyone was completely blocked. I left everything and ran back home to get my car, as again we live in a different state about 16 hours away from my family. When I got home and she greeted me with that smile like she did nothing, I exploded on her. I lost it. I asked why she would block everyone that meant something to me. I yelled at her my grandmother had died and I had to find out from some random old friend who just happened to see me. All she said was sorry, but she did it for us, and my friends and family prevented us from being together. She had to do it. I have never been that angry in my life. I wanted to knock her out. I told her to get her stuff and leave my house. She robbed me of the final moments I could have spent with my grandmother, the woman who raised me, the woman who meant everything to me and taught me almost everything I know. It took her 10 minutes to leave my house, but I lost it myself as soon as she did. I don't know if I yelled, screamed, or cried, but I destroyed my own house. All I remember was this overwhelming rage. I don't even remember half the drive to my grandparents' house. I'm currently at my grandparents' house as the funeral preparations are being made. When I first arrived, the family exploded on me, asking where I'd been and why I didn't answer them. I explained the situation and what had happened. Although I think they believed me, I could still see the disappointed looks in their eyes when they looked at me. According to my cousin, one of the last things my grandmother asked for the day before she died was where I was. She robbed me of that. She robbed my grandmother of that. My now ex told our mutual friend what happened. Surprisingly, she told them the whole truth. They all said that what she did was wrong and I had every right to break up with her, but I went too far by threatening to hurt her. I am an idiot for the way I handled things. Although my actions in those moments weren't the best and I am ashamed, I can't in a word describe the anger, rage and betrayal I felt. Am I the idiot? Edit. The last message between me, my friend and my family was 6 days ago, and we have gone longer without talking to each other. Life gets busy. Nobody came to my state to see if I was alright or to come and get me, because the doctors told my family she wouldn't have much time left. All of them wanted to be there for her and my grandfather. They would have been together 65 years next month, and he took it very hard, stopped eating and didn't sleep for those 2 days. I was basically put on the back burner. I do not hate them, as I would have done the same. Not the idiot. Sorry for your loss. There's nothing that will help, only time. Lean on your family and friends. It's easy for people to pass judgment and say, wow, you overreacted. You really didn't need to do all of that towards her. But they are not thinking about your situation. Anyone would have lost it. You didn't put your hands on her. You only used the words most available to you at that moment to convey the severity of how you were feeling and how urgently she needed to go. Last thing, put a lock code on your phone. Romantic partners have their own phones and don't need access to yours without your consent. Plus, it's good for general security. He should also change his locks and ensure she didn't have access to his accounts. If she was on his phone for enough time to read and delete texts, block calls and change his settings, who knows what else she was getting into. Though regrettable, that tiny, minuscule detail of threatening your ex was really something of her own making. She brought it upon herself with wicked, long and accumulated manipulation. I agree. That woman is crazy as heck, dude. Like seriously, don't even move back to that town. Just hire a company to pack all your stuff and send it wherever you are. Shake all the moving boxes before opening them to ensure she's not hiding in one. OP, your ex is a vile, manipulative monster. Isolating partners away from their support network is textbook abuser behavior. You did absolutely nothing wrong here. and I'm so sorry about your grandmother. In my opinion, you should block her, and if anyone asks why, say, oh, I did it for us. Good luck, man. I have a 24-year-old son who's done nothing with his life. He didn't go to college and now works a minimum wage job at a restaurant. He lives with his friends in a small studio and they play video games all day. He has no plans for his future. My niece recently turned 18 and she's planning to go to a good college. She also has a part-time job and tutors other kids in her free time. She plans to move out of her parents' house as soon as she graduates, and she has enough money saved to rent a place with a few roommates. Overall, I truly admire her because she's smart and hard-working. For my niece's 18th birthday, my brother informed me of his plan to buy a car for my niece and asked me to contribute. I agreed and gave him $3,000. My brother bought the car and gave it to her as a birthday gift from both of us. Now my son is mad at me and claims that I'm an idiot and should have given this money to him and helped him buy a car instead. Am I the idiot for buying a car for my niece instead of my son? Everyone's the idiot here. You are because do you even like your son? Your brother because who expects anyone to chip in $3,000 for a gift? That entitlement alone would annoy me. Your son because he's expecting you to spend your money on him. Something tells me you did nothing for your son's graduation since he didn't have plans to go to college, and I'm assuming that holds your resentment. The fact you pitched into a car for your niece in front of your son would make me angry. Here's my theory of what's going on. Given OP's insanely high expectations of his son materializing a job that pays over minimum wage with no degree, and what we can safely assume is zero assistance from OP to pay for said degree, I'd say OP has never invested in his son's future, something pretty much required for people to be able to go above what his son currently has these days. We can also say from how OP talks about his son in his post that OP has a great deal of animosity towards him for not meeting these impossible standards. Given that knowledge, it could be reasonable to assume that OP's son feels resentful that OP would rather invest in his niece's perceived future than his own son. You are the idiot, but not for buying him a car. That's your money and your choice, and I doubt anyone but your son would disagree. That said, your elitist attitude towards your son is why you're the idiot. He's not living with you nor sponging off of you. He's making his own choices. And while you clearly disagree with them, you don't get to be smug about him being a loser because he didn't go to college. You basically call him a loser because he didn't go to college like your niece. My son, 25, started seeing a new girl named Lexi around a year and a half ago. She lives a few hours away, but they see each other often enough. I just met her personally. I don't know much about her, but she makes my son happy and seems to have a good head on her shoulders. That's all that matters to me. Last Friday, we hosted a barbecue and a party for about 25 or 30 people. It was mostly family and friends. My son asked me if he could bring Lexi, and I told him that it was fine. We had ribs, burgers and wings, as well as some sides that didn't have meat. My son didn't communicate to me, or anyone else handling the food, that Lexi is a very particular eater and wouldn't be able to eat anything we served. Lexi is Catholic and can't eat meat on Fridays. My son was aware of this and invited her to a barbecue, knowing what would be served. On top of that, she also has an eating disorder that limits what kinds of food she will and can eat without feeling sick. She was sweet and I enjoyed her company, but I felt terrible watching her sit without food. When I asked if she'd eaten beforehand, she said yes and she wasn't hungry. I asked my son separately why he'd gone out to eat right before a barbecue, and he told me they'd come straight from her house. So I asked him if she didn't like the food, to which he explained why she couldn't eat the meat and that she wouldn't eat any of the sides either. Since he didn't say anything beforehand, I asked her myself. I asked Lexi if there was anything I could get her or make her, or if she wanted us to run somewhere and pick something up. She asked if I had any fruit, so she had fruit salad. After everything was sorted out, my son approached me and told me that I'd embarrassed her and shouldn't have drawn attention to it. I told him that he should have tried harder to accommodate her, or at least tell us beforehand that she wouldn't be able to eat what everyone else was. We easily could have made some plain salad or had fruit available at no hassle for anyone else, and she would at least have been able to pick at something instead of going hungry. If it had been addressed beforehand, then I wouldn't have had to ask. My son left in a huff to bring Lexi home, and he's still insisting that I made a bad impression and that it wouldn't have been a big deal if she didn't eat. Apparently I made her anxiety worse, but that's according to him, so I'm not sure I believe it. Am I the idiot? Could I have handled it any other way? Not the idiot. What was his solution? Let her go hungry. She asked for a fruit salad and she got one. Sorted. Why is he trying to make a mountain out of a molehill? He's covering his butt for not being smart or empathetic enough to ask OP to have something his girlfriend could eat. He's trying to make OP out to be the insensitive one here and defending his girlfriend's honor in the hope he just didn't give her a peek at a couple of his red flags. 100%. How well could he know or care for her if he takes her to a barbecue where she can't eat meat? A quick phone call in time for planning and there could have been a tasty grilled fish option, and that could have been enjoyed by several guests, so Lexi wouldn't feel singled out. Or they could have brought their own at the last minute. Your son is a bad boyfriend and he needs to improve. I hope Lexi is reassessing her relationship with someone who cares so little for her that he doesn't care if she goes hungry and then tries to gaslight his own mother for resolving the problem he caused. You did more than your son did. You were a great hostess. He clearly has a lot of growing up to do, and at 25, that's just plain sad.